right, real quick before we get into this one, I want to say thanks to a very loyal viewer who has commissioned this video with a very generous donation. She goes by Karen Jackie in the comments. You'll see her in the comment sections of most of my videos. She's always got something cool and interesting to say, so say hello to her the next time you see her. Very cool. This is now the second viewer who has commissioned a video. I've done, I think, 3 videos now for a guy who goes by Not a Cynic, and you'll also see him all over the comments sections. And hopefully some more of you will take me up on this. Just go to mjerant.com, send me an email, let me know what topic you want me to cover, and we can negotiate the price. Believe me, either of these two will tell you it's very reasonable what I would ask. So that said, let's get into Smoke on the Water. So as I implied in the thumbnail, a lot of people are tempted to reduce this song to just that riff. It's understandable. It's so iconic, probably the most recognizable in the history of hard rock for sure. But this song has so much more to offer, and we're going to get into that. But we will start with the riff because it's truly a force of nature. First of all, I love the sound on Richie's guitar here. It's got that great 60s, 70s broken up distortion that I think is so much cooler than a lot of the over-processed tones we hear today. I love that sound. Now, I've explained this riff before elsewhere on the channel, but I'm going to go over it again because it's well worth it. This is a classic Blackmore riff in the key of G minor. He loves that key. And he uses what we call inverted power chords. Now, a power chord is played on 2 adjacent strings. The reason this is inverted is the root is not the lower note, but the higher note. So this G note here on the 4th string, 5th fret, is the root note of this inverted G power chord. We've got a D on the bottom on string 5. He also plucks these with thumb and forefinger. That's the funny thing about this riff. I can't tell you how many times I've had students or other guitar players say, oh yeah, Smoke on the Water, that's so easy. And then they proceed to play it wrong in multiple ways. That's one of them right there. People use a pick instead of plucking it. Another mistake people make is to play like traditional power chords or bar chords. So these are the non-inverted power chords. Close, but not quite the same sound. Another mistake people make is they'll play just single notes. This is a thing the absolute beginners like to do. Maybe even change the key. Once again, in the ballpark, but not correct. So in the end, the riff consists of G, B flat, C, G, B flat, D flat, C. That's root, flat 3rd, 4th, and D flat is the flat 5. Now, anytime you've got a riff that contains the flatted 3rd and the flatted 5th, chances are you've got a pretty cool hard rock riff. But for me, the most interesting rabbit hole to go down when it comes to this riff is what was Blackmore's inspiration? Now, I'm going to start off by playing a short clip from an interview with Blackmore himself in which he gives an explanation.
I want to be involved in this. So I listened to Ludwig van Beethoven. Bum, 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 bum. And I thought, play that backwards. Put something to it, and you've got bum, 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 bum. That's how I came up with it.
Okay, so I remember seeing this clip quite a while back and thinking, I don't know, that doesn't really seem like there's a whole lot of similarity there. But I didn't think about it much. I never really explored it. I knew Blackmore was a huge fan of classical music and Beethoven in particular. He did a sort of rock and roll cover of the Ode to Joy section from Beethoven's Ninth Symphony on Rainbow's Difficult to Cure album. So it certainly didn't surprise me that he could be influenced by a piece of classical music. But the thing is, if you take Blackmore at his word and start to look into it, the connection seems pretty tenuous at best. So the Beethoven riff, of course, starts on G. So G, E flat. It's in C minor. Then it's F to D. Now, if you play that backwards, as Richie suggested, you get something like this. Okay, does that sound like Smoke on the Water to you? Now, when someone says they were inspired by something, it's really difficult to naysay that. I mean, inspiration works in strange ways. So could it be that Blackmore heard that Beethoven riff and it inspired something in him that eventually led to Smoke on the Water? It could be the case, but at any rate, I think it's a bit more complicated than he would have us believe. It's not simply a matter of playing the Beethoven riff backwards. That said, do you want to hear another riff that really does sound shockingly like Smoke on the Water? Check this out. Pretty crazy, right? Now, as you saw briefly on your screen, that's from a guy called Carlos Lira. The tune is called Maria Moita from 1964. And damn, if that's not really close to Smoke on the Water. He's added a few little trills and frills, but it's awful close. Kind of a bossa nova style there. Now, earlier in the interview I showed a moment ago, Blackmore mentions that he had been playing a lot of jazz in the early days, so he very well could have been familiar with this tune. In the end, we'll probably never know for sure what inspired Smoke on the Water. I think my money's going on this tune here, but I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comments. Give me your opinions on this. All right, so as much as I love Ritchie Blackmore, I do not want to make this video all about Ritchie Blackmore because keyboardist John Lord, drummer Ian Pace, and bassist Roger Glover make huge contributions to this song. I want to show you how the use of different rhythms by various players really gives this thing its drive. So Ritchie's part is based on quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now in a moment, keyboardist John Lord is going to double that riff on a Hammond C3 organ played through a Marshall amp, making it sound very much like Ritchie's guitar. Now listen to drummer Ian Pace doing 16th notes on the hi-hat cymbal. So we got quarters, we got 16ths. Now Pace starts playing 2 and 4 on his snare drum. And here comes bassist Roger Glover cranking out the 8th notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, right? So it all blends together in this just amazing groove that won't quit. All of which brings us to the verse and the entry of vocalist Ian Gillan. Now I realize I haven't mentioned Ian yet, but don't worry, we're going to cover his contribution in depth. But regarding the rhythm here during the verse, Ritchie Blackmore is a guitar player whose rhythms tend to be very sparse. Go back over the Deep Purple and Rainbow catalog. You're not going to find too many songs where Ritchie is strumming per se in the usual way. It's just not his thing. We talked about the inverted power chords, you'll get those. But then when he's backing up a vocal, it's often just single notes. As is the case here, it's sort of a root 5th octave pattern, arpeggiated. G to F. And that's pretty much it, which is great because it leaves space for Roger Glover to riff a little bit. Let's listen to a bit of the verse. So Glover's kind of laying back here. Check this one out. Nice little G minor pentatonic riff there in between Gillan's vocal lines. John Lord is really just comping on the organ, kind of nice little accents here and there. Here comes the chorus, of course. C major, A flat. That's the flat 2 of G. Really interesting. So yeah, that major 4 chord is not something we expect in the key of G minor. Actually, a major 4 chord is indicative of G Dorian minor. Now, I believe Blackmore and Lord are actually only playing power chords, which, as mentioned earlier, are only roots and fifths, so it's nonsensical to talk about major and minor in that context. However, Ian Gillan's vocal melody on Smoke lands squarely on the major third of that C chord, so it's absolutely implied, if nothing else. And then again, there's that A flat, not anything to do with the key of G minor, but we can get away with it as it just adds a nice tension and then resolves to the 1 chord. All right, so let's talk about Ian Gillan's lyrics, which to me are another one of the highlights of this song. There's nothing fanciful here. This is nothing more than a real-life story that Gillan is relating. I'm sure many of you have a rough idea of what it's all about. In 1971, Deep Purple went to Montreux, Switzerland to record the Machine Head album. They were going to use the Rolling Stones mobile recording studio. It was located inside of a truck, and so bands could record sort of on location all over the place. It's amazing the list of classic rock acts that have recorded with that studio. The original plan was that the band was to record in a theater inside a casino that was scheduled to close for winter renovations. But the night before recording was to commence, Frank Zappa and the Mothers, as Gillan tells us, played a concert in that same theater. During the last tune, some stupid with a flare gun, also a direct quote from the lyrics, burned the place to the ground. Apparently the ceiling of this place was covered in rattan and it went up like a tinderbox. And by the way, is it just me or is that line, some stupid with a flare gun, a little bit cringe and awkward? I love these lyrics, but I've always had the feeling that he could have come up with a better word there. Although I also have these visions of the band thinking of all kinds of colorful epithets they could have used in place of stupid, but maybe they got spooked that, radio programmers wouldn't like the use of a stronger word. I don't know. At any rate, the casino was completely destroyed, along with all of Frank Zappa's gear, by the way. And Deep Purple essentially watched the whole thing go down from their hotel windows. Amazingly, no one was seriously hurt, due partially to the efforts of a guy called Claude Nobbs, who was the director of the Montreux Jazz Festival and was apparently herding fans out of the venue during the tragedy. And Gillan, the ever-faithful narrator, has included this as well. We get the line, Funky Claude was running in and out, pulling kids on the ground. By the way, Deep Purple would eventually dedicate the Machine Head album to Claude Nobbs. There followed a frantic search for another place to record. Eventually, they settled on renting out the Grand Hotel, which was empty at the time, converting the hallways and stairwells to their recording space. But let's let Ian tell the story. It's all in the final verse. We ended up at the Grand Hotel. It was empty, cold, and bare, with the rolling truck Stones thing outside. I always love that line. Making our music there. With a few red lights, a few old beds, we made a place to sweat. No matter what we get out of this, I know I'll never forget. Smoke on the water and fire in the sky. By the way, the title was thought up by bassist Roger Glover. I did not know that until recently. He claims it came to him in a dream a couple of days after the event. Pretty cool. Vocally, this is not one of Gillan's more acrobatic performances. You want to listen to something like Child in Time for that. But of course, it's very competent and perfect for the song. He stays more in his lower register with a couple of occasional swoops up high, and as always, delivered with tons of attitude. Let's listen to the second verse. It died with an awful sound. There's Funky Claude.
Pulling kids out the ground. When it all was over, we had to find another place.
I love this line here.
Swiss time was running out.
Swiss time was running out. Very clever. And of course, we have to talk about Blackmore's guitar solo. It's interesting, in a lot of the classic Deep Purple rockers, both Lord and Blackmore take a solo, right? Highway Star is a great example. You get the keyboard solo, then you get another verse, and then Blackmore takes his solo. But only a guitar solo in this one. And I'm not sure why, although I suspect maybe the band saw a lot of commercial potential in this tune as they were creating it, and maybe they thought 2 long solos would make it less commercial. Although if that was the case, in the end they needn't have bothered, as radio stations played an edited version of the song anyway, which chopped out a big chunk of Blackmore's solo. This solo is a great example of how Blackmore seamlessly mixes pentatonic and diatonic scales within the same solo. Remember, we're in G minor, and it starts off pure G minor pentatonic. Now here's where we start to go a bit diatonic. This little descending run. That E flat there is the flatted sixth in the key of G minor. So that's outside of the pentatonic scale into what we call the Aeolian scale. We get some nice bluesy bends. Now the chord underneath has changed to C. So we're now going to go into a C minor pentatonic scale. But here's where Blackmore is adding all these cool extra tones. We start with this bluesy Chuck Berry sort of thing. But as he comes down, that's a major 6. That implies C Dorian. So we had Aeolian minor earlier, now it's Dorian. He throws in a flatted 5th, that blue note. So you put it all together. One of my favorite parts of the solo comes right at the end. Now, up to this point, Blackmore has been using his neck pickup, which gives a very smooth and warm tone. But right at the end, you know that bit where he does this long, soulful bend and picks it repeatedly as he slowly releases the bend? He quickly flicks over to his bridge pickup, which has a much more bright and penetrating tone. It's a really cool effect. Check it out. It's perfect for that part. Now, obviously, Smoke on the Water was very successful in its day. The single made it to number 4 on the Billboard chart. And by the way, something cool about that single, the B-side was a live version of the tune, which was from Deep Purple's Made in Japan album, often considered one of the greatest live rock albums of all time. And I remember as a kid, I think that live version got played just as much, if not even a little more, than the studio version on the radio. And I think it still gets played today. I know you've all heard it. It's got that great sort of call and response thing at the end where Blackmore and Lord trade riffs. But Smoke on the Water has fully transcended its own time and risen to legendary status over the years. You know that famous no stairway scene in Wayne's World in the guitar shop?
Hey! No stairway. Denied.
I've always felt that probably should have been No Smoke on the Water. The stairway riff is kind of complicated, whereas Smoke on the Water, I can tell you as a guitar teacher, I can often get a total beginner to approximate the Smoke on the Water riff within one lesson. So I suspect it's probably been played more than Stairway in guitar centers around the world over the years. So I think that about covers it. Thanks for watching to the end. Thanks again to Karen for suggesting this one. By the way, if you've been watching the videos and enjoying them, make sure you're subscribed and not just lurking. That would be a huge help. All right, see you on the next one.